symptoms and signs are the noise inside the body.
Mm-hmm.
They're making the noise. But actually, the part of you that's healthy doesn't make a noise.
Yeah, it's
So,
the invisible and silent.
so people are actually more healthy, much more healthy
Yes.
than they ill. But it's the
Yes,
illness is making the noise. So if you've got a room with 200 people, if you've got 5 people making a noise, it can disrupt the whole room.
Yes.
But it's only 5 people.
Yeah.
So illness is a little bit like that. You know, when you're ill, you think, oh, I'm so ill.
Yes, yes.
You should be saying, oh, I'm so healthy.
And the fact that you go to the hospital and the doctor kind of writes all over you, this is an ill person.
This is an ill person.
Now I'm ill because I'm going to a doctor.
Yeah.
When actually, I like that.
My focus is on what's healthy. If a
Yeah.
person's ill, it's because health has decreased.
Mm.
Well, if we can bring health back again,
Yes.
health will do the healing.
For a while in my early adulthood, I was a primary school teacher. And what you're describing is exactly like having a class of 25, 30 young children, and 2 or 3 of them have a need to be really active and noisy and disruptive on a particular day. And the temptation is to put all your attention, spend a lot of your time getting them to calm down, dealing with their problems and their needs. And you've got, another 20-odd children who are actually there to have a good time and learn
Right.
and so on. And the better strategy is to work with them and give a little attention to the others. But your real work is building something healthy and calm that the noisier children it somehow has an effect on them
Yes.
too.
It's not that you mustn't pay attention to the noisy children, but you
can't
do
pretend
need
they're
to
not there.
recognize that it's the children that are mostly not noisy that still need to be supported.
They create the culture in the classroom. If the
Yes.
culture is allowed to be shaped by who makes the most noise,
Right.
then you're lost.
Yes. And that's the trouble with conventional medicine, is that it tends to focus only on the noisy part
Yes.
and not pay attention to the health.
Yes.
Because the health is healthy, we don't need to pay attention
No,
to it.
no.
But the whole point is that only health has the intelligence to heal.
Oh, I like that.
It's where healing's going to come from, is from the healthy part.
Yes.
So you want to support as much health as you can. I'm not against symptomatic medicine, but we need to be careful that in trying to treat the symptoms, we forget about the healthy part, which is what you rely on.
It's running the show. Yeah.
Even if a person needs surgery, if you've got a patient with cancer, just removing the cancer and sending the patient home doesn't make any sense to someone like me. Because what you've done is send the patient home with a body that is still not able to heal itself.
Yeah.
All you've done is remove the end point. It's like a motor car that is broken, and you fix the parts that's broken, but you don't do a tune-up, and you don't speak to the driver. That's a bad mechanic. So in my practice, I made sure that I spoke to the driver,
Yeah.
did a tune-up, because I knew
Yeah.
how to do a tune-up, acupuncture, laser, supporting health, and treat the disease if appropriate. I mean, that's the integrator model I started to teach other doctors.
Have you ever tried doing acupuncture on a car?
No. I mean, you can do it if you translate it into a different language.
Ah, okay. The principles.
Principles are the same. People have always practiced in that kind of way. It's just that the conventional model has shrunk its interest
Yes.
to the treatment of disease using pharmaceutical agents and surgery. So they become actually very, very narrow-minded. And they forget that the disease is attached to a body which belongs to a person. So the whole beingness, the person, the body, is being shrunk into the disease. And the doctor then focuses on the diseases. In my thinking, we are not parts, we are a system. That's why in my book, Healthy Medicine, there's a picture of a spiral. A spiral gives me an image of a system, a dynamic system, functioning as one whole piece, not in parts and pieces.
Am I right in assuming that the approach to healing taken by most indigenous cultures would be saying the same sorts of things as you're saying, and that we took a different path? Because I can't believe that Native Americans, indigenous African shamans and sangomas in this part of the world and so on, all over the world. I mean, didn't we do healing in this more holistic way?
You're right. They never knew about diseases. They knew a person had symptoms and signs of illnesses. But the question of disease happened when doctors started to do postmortems.
Oh, really?
And when they started to do postmortems and cut the body up, they suddenly discovered pathology. And when they discovered pathology, they started to link pathology to the symptoms and signs. So that's how we got out of the more holistic model.
To the reductionist.
To a
There must be
reductionist.
something wrong somewhere. Let's go and dig in there. Now I'm curious about what was the thinking that led that first doctor to say, I want to go in and open up this sick cadaver.
I had a toy in my surgery. It was a round toy with a bell inside. And I can remember this boy broke it open to find the bell.
Yeah.
So there is a kind of natural tendency to want to break things apart and look inside it.
But the Chinese didn't carve bodies up, did they? The Native Americans didn't.
I think the body was more sacred, maybe.
Okay, that was really breaking a sacred code to
look inside
the body. And I just think it's interesting that to my limited understanding, indigenous medicine doesn't proceed by cutting open to investigate.
I think also there was much more the idea that somehow illness had to do with spirit. There was always this idea that illnesses was much more fluid, much more...
And outside of you, it could...
Yeah, well, not just even outside you, but it had a different meaning.
Oh, okay. Yes.
That a different narrative to the conventional model that we have today. Because today we've kind of made it into a thing that you can see and measure. And that was the Newtonian scientific model. You know, that somehow in order to find the basic building blocks of matter, you had to break matter up.
Into the smallest possible...
Into the smallest part, so we can actually find the building blocks of what matter is. Yes. Whereas before things were much more flowing. There was relationships. Trees were magical. The trees had a spirit. Whereas the conventional model of Newtonian science was to break things apart in order to find out what was going on inside.
Already by Newton's time, there were a lot of barber surgeons who were used to cutting the body and trying to fix things mechanically. There was a parting of the ways sometime before then, which allowed the possibility of me to act on this body as though it was not sacred and a machine with small working parts, and I must understand the smallest of them.
So I think somewhere along the way, science started to pay attention to what only could be measured, and that was the objective world. Spirit and soul belonged to religion, and matter belonged to science. And so that's when they started to investigate matter by breaking it up into bits and pieces and assuming that somewhere along the way they would find the basic building blocks.
Yes.
But what happened didn't turn out that way.
No.
Because the very moment they started to reduce matter, they discovered atoms, and then they discovered particles, and then they knew that there was no such thing as matter, there's only energy information.
Yeah.
But modern medicine is still stuck in the materialistic...
Somewhere halfway along. Although there have been awful side effects, you know, enough times people will take a pill and feel better, or be surgically...
Yeah, so obviously there's a place for both.
Yeah.
For me it was always a question of wanting to go deeper, because I knew that treating disease only was not good enough.
Yeah.
And we end up with chronic disease and people on all kinds of drugs. So for me it was just a question of going back to the question that I had as a child, that under the microscope there was another world. There is another world, this inner world that has taken me very deep, and an outer world which is full of magic as well. And how to to link these two, I guess, has been my life journey,
life's journey.
is how to, the inner world and the outer world. In the same way is what is disease all about? Because it's all very well to say that it's due to pollution, bad food choices, but it's not so simple. You know, we're always dealing with multiple causes. I mean, there's always food choices, there's lack of exercise, there's pollution in the world,
None
stress
of them,
management.
if you add them all up, they definitely come to a particular disease.
I don't know any disease that has one cause.
No.
So there's a range of causes. These causes lead to dysfunction. Dysfunction leads to disease. And disease is the end point. How do we heal people when it's so complex? I remember having coffee with a professor of complexity studies in Stellenbosch University.
Yes.
You know, he said, everybody tells you that we understand complexity because we have these mathematical formulas. He says complexity is so damn complex you can never understand it. The mathematical formulas don't give the answers. They help us to think that we're in control. So we live in complexity, enormous complexity.
And we're holding on to...
And we're holding on to
little
a
structures.
narrative that makes us feel that we're in charge, and we're actually not in charge.
No. Who's the doctor not in charge here?